So the hard part in the start was, how do we get like those first 1,000-2,000 users in, so we can kind of start that product-led growth, and we can get the ball rolling. And for us, that was really, we did that by cold outreach. So we would just send DMs to people. So we would basically scan product hunts, and then I would just literally like make lists. I think manual process is already where a lot of people just stop because it's boring, right?
Yeah.
The response rate is super low, but like, yeah, we have to keep on doing this day in, day out to get those first users. And I think I don't know, I probably DM'd thousands of people from like just a Google Sheet, but literally like trying to keep it personal, you know, trying to look up a bit of the background and this and that. So I did that for months, month long.
Welcome to the Undefeated Underdogs podcast, where I unpack and narrate stories of ambitious people who turn obstacles into opportunities. My goal for this podcast is to create a platform to narrate underdog stories and maybe play a small, teeny tiny role in inspiring you. I intend to highlight the underdog mentality and make authentic conversations with people who play the long game, take action with a chip on their shoulder, and convert obstacles into opportunities. Buckle up, as I'll be bringing some authentic founders, VCs, community builders, and content creators who got underestimated their whole lives, and yet they beat all the odds to become insanely successful. Now, today I want to tell you a little bit about our awesome sponsor, Acquire.com. Selling a business is as tough as building a business. As someone who went through this process once, selling my own startup, I know the pain it takes to get to the end zone. This is where our sponsor shines. Imagine this. You're a founder who's built a solid SaaS product, acquired customers, and generating consistent monthly revenue. The problem is, you're not growing for whatever reason. Lack of focus, lack of skill, or just plain lack of interest, and you feel stuck. What should you do? The story I'd like to hear is, you buckled down, somehow reignited the fire, get past yourself and the cliches, and start working on your business rather than just in the business. You start building an audience, move out of your comfort zone to do sales and marketing, and in 6 months, you triple your revenue. The reality isn't as simple. Situations may be different from every founder facing this crossroads, but too many times, the story ends up being one of inaction and stagnation until the business becomes less valuable or worse, worthless. If you find yourself here or your story is likely headed down a similar road, I offer you a third option. Consider selling your business on Acquire.com. Capitalizing on the value of your time is a smart move. Acquire.com is free to list and they've helped hundreds of founders already. Go to try.acquire.com/Sharath and see for yourself if this is the right option for you. Now, let's get into today's episode. My next guest is a mom of two and building a $1 million business all by herself with a co-founder by doing things in public and killing it all along. And I've been a big fan of these two folks, the company Tally. Many of you already know what Tally is. It's a form builder, but a modern form builder where it works like Notion. And I'm so stoked to bring Marie on the podcast because I've been following their journey. And like I said, it's so inspirational to see people like Marie who go above and beyond to balance life and work and to do all that in public. So I'm so stoked. Marie, welcome to the show. How are you feeling today?
Thank you so much for having me. Good, great. A bit tired, as you can probably see, but that's part of the deal, I guess. But yeah, doing great. I'm really happy to finally meet you.
Yes, we've been kind of like, I think I can say this. I'm the early users of Tally.
Yeah.
When you shipped the MVP in 2020 September. But first of all, congrats on welcoming your second kid. I'm sure your hands are full. and I appreciate you for taking time to join me. I can empathize because I'm a new dad as well. We welcomed our second kid, so juggling between two
Yeah.
is. So yeah, I want to talk about that first. Like, talk to me about parenting. And we were kind of joking around before we hit record about parenting being hard, but yet it's rewarding, right? So,
Yeah.
how is being a mom helped you motivate or push yourself and go above and beyond?
Yeah, good question. I guess the funny thing is we already had to reschedule our podcast. I think was it once or twice, probably because of kids.
Yeah, we did
So that's
twice, by
already
the way.
that's already a good start. And yeah, how do they motivate me? I mean, when we launched Tally, that was also like the beginning of our startup adventure together. So in me and Philip. Philip is co-founder of Tally. And so we didn't have kids yet. And I think we had like this dream image of, we wanted to become digital nomads actually, and we wanted to
Hmm.
travel and work at the same time. All of that didn't happen because of COVID, but that's a different story.
Wait,
And then
wait, wait, wait. I just realized what you said. So Philip is your partner?
yes.
Oh my God.
Oh, you
Did
didn't
people?
know?
I didn't know. I always.
Yeah. Yeah,
Whoa,
so
that's.
Philip is the the my partner, my the father of my of our kids. Yes.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
I
even
don't
like
say
amazing.
husband because we're not married, but yeah,
No, no.
yeah.
That's like you're a power couple in bootstrapping world. You're like Beyonce and Jay-Z maybe.
Wow, that's the first time.
You're
Yeah, but we
definitely you're definitely
yeah.
a power couple for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I
Yeah, go
mean,
ahead, go ahead.
we try to keep things afloat, I would say. Probably it looks better from the outside than it actually is in reality. I think it's been hard, to be honest, like the
Hmm.
past couple of years. It just comes down to having kids. There's less energy and there's just less hours to work, right? So even
Right,
when they are in bed, you just have less energy to keep on going. And
right,
especially, you're bootstrapping, you're trying to launch a business, so you need to put in the work. And if you cannot do that, then things just don't happen, especially when
right.
there's no team to rely on. But even then, there's always work
Yeah, yeah.
to be done. So we really had to, I think, like kind of rebalance and restructure our whole lives, and also kind of come to terms with the fact that there's just less hours in a day now for us,
Hmm.
because that's just kind of the reality of how it is, especially because we're both in it.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
not like one person can go full on work and then the other person takes care of the kids. We don't have that.
I was under the impression that you have two kids. I didn't know that, you guys are partners in real life because in my mind it's like, okay, Marie has some help. She might like,
Yeah,
took some time off. Maybe Philip is like taking care of things, running things. So it's actually kind of like, but this is so phenomenal because you both have to take care of those two kids.
yeah.
It's not like if
Yeah,
there is
yeah, it
no
brings a
like,
new dimension to the
correct. It's
yeah,
like if you have if you're like two different people, then there is like, even then it's hard. First of all,
yeah,
parenting is hard, guys. It's freaking hard. I appreciate every parent who's like trying to raise kids at the same time, do ambitious things like pursue their passion projects,
yeah,
create content. So we salute you. But in your case, I think you're playing a 100x harder game. And I
yeah,
want to unpack that. Why do you want to choose, like, I think kids are amazing, but my curiosity is about why are you not hiring, or why are you not raising money, or why are you not seeking help to
yeah,
actually run this company? That is, I think, is completely doable, and it's
yeah,
completely something that you can outsource or delegate.
yeah,
Kids, you both have to take care, so there is no
yeah,
discussion there. That's
no,
like that's it. So
yeah.
curious about, like, you're talking about rebalancing, which I want to definitely talk about. But why are you making your being a founder itself is hard. Being a founder parent is 10x hard. Now you both are being bootstrapped, having two kids, running the same thing. It's 100x hard. So
Yeah.
why are you not taking that
Yeah.
other route?
I think I mean, we started 4 years ago, right? So it's
Yeah.
been a couple of years. When we started, we didn't have kids, and I think everyone that goes into parenting is naive. Like, there's no way that you know how it will be,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
You hear stories, you hear the worst stories, you hear the best stories, but you always feel, and probably everyone thinks, like, I'll be able to manage, or I can do a
Mm-hmm.
better job, until they're there, right? And then kind of reality kicks in and you realize how hard it actually is. So I think that's part of like the beginning of our story. Like, we thought we would be able to manage it, and that was kind of the reason why we thought, okay, it would be a good idea to have a child while launching a business. Of course, we knew it was going to be hard, but we didn't really grasp like how hard it would be. Then with Lucy, our daughter, being our first kid, that was actually during COVID. And it was a very different life for us, because basically we didn't have anything else than work and the kid. There's no social
Right.
activities or
Yeah.
anything like that. So after a couple of months, she went pretty early to daycare, which is
Mm-hmm.
like in Belgium, kids basically go after 3 or 4 months to daycare. And at the time, Tally was still very small. Like you mentioned, we had like we didn't launch yet on Product Hunt for the first time. So it was, I mean, even though it was time consuming, it was manageable for us. I think we had like
Right.
around 1,000 users. It was very small. So I think the first year was kind of okay, because we managed to kind of combine both things, and also being in lockdown and basically not having anything else to do, we kind of had more time, I guess, and energy to work. The bootstrapping part, because you also mentioned that, like, why don't you raise funds? We kind of from the start thought, like, okay, Philip is a full stack engineer, I have a background in marketing, that we kind of have the compatible skills to try to do it
Right.
ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can do it ourselves, like, why not try and see if we can
Sure.
grow this thing organically? But also because combined with the family, we didn't really need extra pressure from investors at the time, because as you will also know, there are days where you cannot work or you cannot perform
Correct.
as you would want to do. And
Right.
so we felt like bringing in investors would probably make it even harder on us instead of easier, because now we were actually pretty flexible, even though you're still kind of a slave of your own business, but we could at least decide to take time off when we had to, go to doctor visits, be kind of organize our own working hours. So that was actually kind of a motivator also, just to stay independent for us in the beginning. And so, as Tally started growing, we came to the stage where it just became really busy. And we also realized that we had to grow the team. So our goal is not to just stay with just the two of us.
Right.
We have hired people before. Some ended well, some did not end that well. And especially, I think the hard part for us was because we were bootstrapped. We didn't immediately have the large budgets to hire senior
Of course.
people.
Right.
So what happened is that we didn't get like the output always that we wanted from the people that we were working with. So sometimes it was even easier to just do things ourselves again, and then scale the team later on. So that all of that kind of happened throughout the years. And I guess also combined with our age, I'm 35, Philip is 36. We're not like young students that are just starting the startup journey. So we both wanted
you're
kids
young.
in life. We still feel young sometimes.
No, all the time. You should feel young. You're doing, like I said,
Yeah.
you're killing it. you're
Yeah,
both are like, we're all young people at heart.
yeah, indeed,
I'm
indeed.
35 too,
That's a
so I
good
can
way.
empathize. I can empathize with you being managing two kids, not having time.
Yeah,
Man, Murray, you're doing something incredible. So you're
thank you.
already, but yeah,
Yeah, I think we didn't want to kind of put our personal lives on hold for the
hmm,
business.
sure,
And even though we knew it was going to be really difficult, and now that we have now that our son is born, we again had went through this rough patch because the
of
dynamics
course,
change again. There's two kids
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Before we were two people to take care of one, and now we kind of each have to split up. And we just realized, like, okay, we both want to be there for the kids, so
hmm,
we don't have a nanny, for example,
hmm,
because we find it important to spend time with them. So we're kind of now trying to outsource everything else that takes time, all of these things,
the chores,
the chores, and since 1 month actually only, we're like, okay, this needs to be outsourced. It's something we don't need to spend time on it. It takes away
right?
time from Tally, time from the kids. So it's basically looking into how can we optimize everything else, so
Hmm,
we have time left to work. And yeah, work now is kind of a bit like more like 9 to 5 for us, because
yeah,
because of
yeah,
kids.
yeah,
I think we put in more hours than that, but that's kind of how we try to structure our day, and we just try to be really strict on um, no distractions. We don't have almost
hmm,
don't have meetings. It's a very small team.
yeah,
If people ask me, "Carl, can you hop on a call for this?" So the default answer will be no.
hmm,
If I'm working, this time is super valuable. So
right.
if I have 2 hours, I want to, produce
Spend time,
something
right?
useful for the business and not spend it on anything else. So it's basically a combination of that and just saying no to a lot of things, and just really, really focusing on what we know that works and what our
Hmm,
recipe is. And yeah, so that has gotten us here. Um, we are hiring again, so we are working with more freelancers now.
hmm,
There's Jonathan, which I mentioned earlier, who's in charge of
mm-hmm,
customer support, has been life changing for us. And I've now also started to work with a freelancer, mostly helping us with documentation, copywriting. So slowly, we are getting there, and we are kind of starting to have really talented people on the team that can help us, and also take away some of the recurring tasks, so we can really focus on growth.
hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely been quite a journey, and it's not as easy as it sounds, and that you can hear that from every parent. That there's always
Absolutely,
struggles, and only one thing needs to go wrong. One person is sick, or the baby is sick, and then the
yeah.
whole system collapses. So yeah, it's interesting to say the least.
It keeps you on the toes, right? That's why I
Yeah,
think that's why
yeah,
I think if you wonder why, the Formula One racers ride their race their race car at like 230 miles per hour speed, is because everybody knows it's freaking dangerous, but it gives them the thrill. Like
yeah,
there is like that adrenaline rush, the experience that nobody else will experience. So it's similarly, I think founders are on the same board, like they have this
yeah.
rush, challenging themselves, like how can I navigate, like you're saying, how can I optimize. You're in a phase of delegating, optimizing, so it's kind of like you always are on your toes, and
Yeah, it's really an urge. I haven't really
yeah.
thought about it in this way, but it definitely is, because it is also what gives us energy, and of course
Hmm.
the kids do as well. But we have this passion of now building this product, and for us, Sally, it's kind of like a third baby. Like it's yeah. I mean, besides the kids, the most important thing in our lives, I would say. So we also want to, we want to
Mm.
work and spend
Yeah.
time on it. But I think that's like the struggle that every parent has to go through.
It's like you have to raise Tally too. So when you put in that analogy, like, so you have
Somehow
you
we
have a
do.
moral, you have a moral responsibility towards that, and that comes um the global impact. This is what I want to talk about, like the scale. It's no more a side project where you're at like doing 100K MRR. You're already crossed that $1 million golden number that everybody craves for, and now you have much more responsibility than you thought about, like previously, going back to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Have you ever imagined, like, yourself, you, Philip, like both of you will reach this stage? And is this always like something that you manifested or visualized? This is what, okay, we just started a side project. What was like your, take me back to the early days of Tally. Like, what was your mindset when you launched Tally compared to, like, and to the present day?
Yeah, I think our dream when we launched was to build like this lifestyle business that could support our family, and at the time it was just us two.
Mm.
And I think our first really, like, we had like these targets, and our first one was, how can we pay like one person like a proper salary? So kind of like, let's say, what we would earn before in our jobs. And I think the first year we didn't pay any salaries. Yeah, I mean, we also couldn't. And then, or maybe by the end of the first year we did. And I think that was like the first. I remember then we went for dinner and we were like, wow, like one person is fully living out of this project. Like, that's crazy. Like,
that is insane.
And we celebrated that, and then we thought, if it doesn't grow, we can still keep on doing this, and then maybe the other person can do some consultancy on the side, and we'll make it work, but we will be, independent, and we'll see what happens. So that was like the first part. And then the second one was like, oh, what if we can both, as a family, pay the bills with basically doing what we love. And I remember then our second goal was like, okay, we wanted to make as much as we would do if we would both be freelancers and just would work for, larger companies. Because then we thought, okay, that's the dream. Like, if we can do that, but with a product, like not by selling our time, but by selling a product that you can actually sell, recurringly. And so, then that happened. And I think actually, now that I think about it, those were like the most special moments, because they were kind of like, life changing. And it might seem like, it might sound a bit weird, but like, once you cross that, if there's then like, I don't know, 30K MRR or 50K MRR, the personal effect is not that different. I mean, there's more money coming into the company, but you're like, okay, this is growing now, and the numbers start to mean a bit less, maybe, because you're at this point where like, okay, this is now, we can make a living out of it. But then growth really like sped up in year 2 and year 3. And like reaching 1 million was just almost unreal to me, because
Feels
that's
surreal.
something I really never thought we would reach. So it's
when did you learn about I still remember that I saw the tweet and I was like, I've been meaning to bring you on the podcast previously, but I saw this tweet, March 2021, 1K MRR, March 2022, 15K, March 2023, 50K, March 2024, 100K. So every year you're kind of growing on a ridiculously rapid pace. So, and of course, like you said, it's like, blood, sweat, time, effort, like you've poured your hearts into it. But I'm sure it's like, it's not easy. Let's talk about the trajectory, the hockey stick. It's not
Yeah.
easy. It's like you must have had your lows.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
talk to me about
definitely.
that growth. Like, how did you experience the growth, and what are some things that you want to share with us that you never shared before, or that some people like, okay, I have to share this. I have to get out of my chest. It's about the journey
Yeah.
of going from 1K to
Um,
100K.
yeah, I think indeed it sometimes can come across like these things just happen and they
Yeah.
don't, right? I think the beauty about our product and why we are able to do it with such a small team is, because we rely on the product-led growth. So
Yeah.
so basically the product sells itself.
Mm-hmm.
Free users create a form. The form has a made with Tally badge. A
Mm-hmm.
form is viral by nature. You should, and that's how it goes. But it didn't start out like that because we didn't have any audience or network to share like our
Right.
MVP with. So you
Mm-hmm.
were indeed one of the people that we DM'd, but I think I had like 200 followers on Twitter and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
basically no network in startup world or no code space or any of that. Um, so the hard part in the start was how do we get like those first 1,000 2,000 users in, so we can kind of start that product led growth, and we can get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that was really we did that by cold outreach. So we would just send DMs to
Mm-hmm.
people. So we would basically scan product hunt. And we would just check, okay, who has upvoted similar products or products, that are also
Mm-hmm.
form builders or no code builders or anything like that. And then I would just literally like make lists. I would have like, oh, this is Sharath. Okay, where can I find his contact details? Maybe he's on Twitter. Would go on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
would look for that, find an email, and then we would just send messages of like, hey, we've built this. Maybe
Yep.
you're interested in having a look. But this, I think, manual process is already where a lot of people just stop because it's boring, right? It
Yep.
doesn't give you a lot of. I mean, the response rate is super low.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the first point where we realized, and especially like Philip is more experienced in that, but like that we have to keep on doing this day over
Mm.
day out, day in day out, to get those first users. And I think I don't know, I probably DM thousands of people from like just a Google Sheet. Um, but literally like trying to keep it personal, trying to look
Mm-hmm.
up a bit of the background and this and that. So I did that for months. Just
Wow.
open the sheet, text, open the sheet. And same for Philip. Like he was at the same time building the product, and sometimes we would get some feedback, and he would, incorporate
Incorporate.
that and
Right.
and keep on building, but also just by himself. So it's pretty lonely, and there's not a lot of return, right?
Yeah.
In the start. So I think that's like the first hard part, and then launching on public launch, I would say, where we showed Tally to the world.
Mm.
And it was such an important moment for us because we got a lot of positive feedback. So it really validated, like, okay, you're building something that makes sense.
Right.
And we doubled our user base in one day, which
Mm.
we went from like 1,500 to 3,000 people. That was crazy.
Mm.
And then it just gives you so much energy back. So then, you're charged again to go to the next phase.
Right.
So I think the beginning is probably always the hardest. And then I would say fast forward a year or something, then this kind of, you're still super small, but the scaling kind of starts because there's just so
Right.
many new users coming in. You cannot like serve them. We were doing customer support by ourselves. And so we got to this point where we just burned out.
Mm.
We were both not really able to focus on like growing Tally or like writing content or anything, that we were just answering questions from people, and Philip was fixing bugs, and that was it. And so it doesn't give you a lot of energy.
Right.
New players are coming in, right? Because there's
Mm-hmm.
new form builders being launched
Yeah.
every day,
Yeah.
which gives you like stress as well. Like, oh, what if all of this stops tomorrow?
Yeah.
We've always been
The pressure.
very aware of that. Like, it's going well, but it's also risky, right? Running your own
Mm-hmm.
business. Like, one thing goes wrong and maybe it all
Yeah.
explodes. So that's always like in the back of your head, and I guess still is. Of course, we've reached like, I think the scale or the volume where we know like this is not going to end tomorrow. We're building a product that people love to use, and but it's our responsibility to keep on delivering.
Right.
And I think that's definitely a pressure that is there every day. Yeah.
In one of those moments, I'm curious, when you got burned out, you're like, oh my God, this is too much. What did you do, both of you, to get over that hump?
Yeah.
Because at that time, like you said, it's scaling. That means you're getting more users, more complaints, more bugs, so on and so forth, which you can't control because it's coming from external, things, right? It's not coming
Yeah.
from internal. But you have to internalize. You have to get something, like in your words, I think you're using energy more often, which is very rare for a founder. uh, what is that? What gave you energy that both of you like? Okay, let's put a stop to this. Let's
Yeah.
start something fresh. What was your mindset like?
I think, I mean, because we're in it together, like it has pros and cons, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think the big pro is that we're in it together and we fully understand the situation. If, especially when you have kids, your partner comes home from work, is completely
Right.
overstressed, wants to work day and night, you don't always understand, or you won't always,
Yeah, you can
have the
empathize.
patience. But we can
Yeah.
empathize, and that definitely helps. Um, I think for us in the hard moments, we've always like, okay, so we work from home until now. Actually, next month for the first time we'll have an office,
Oh,
which will also help. But it has always been to like, okay, let's take a step back. If
sure.
it becomes too much, and even literally, like, we will not work today. We will go somewhere else, and we will just
Mm,
talk about what's actually important to us and for the business, and because it's very heavily intertwined, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
our personal lives and business. And so sometimes it has resulted in, for example, we had to fire people, because things were just not going as we wanted, and were requiring more energy than we would get back. So like hard decisions like that, and basically
Mm,
saying, okay, let's slow down development and let's just see. Let's have a look at the roadmap again. Let's see how we
sure.
can start over. But things like that, yeah, I mean, they happen all the time and in all different aspects
Mm-hmm.
of the business. But I think just taking a step back, and trying to zoom out, and trying to help out each other is what kind of has worked until now. um, yeah, it's just a constant, you're working on yourself, you're also growing as a founder. I think
Right.
we're more experienced now than 4 years ago, maybe also
Absolutely.
less stressed because we've been through already some, um
Mm-hmm.
some more
Some ups and
difficult
lows.
times, so I guess it gets a bit easier. But also, just in the end of the day, we're three people. We have 100K MRR. We build we can build a business, fully independently. We're very grateful for that, and that's also, of course, what keeps us going. Like, if it gets hard, to just remind ourselves, like, we're doing this while we're also building a family, and
Yeah.
that's, for us personally, that's amazing. Even though it gets
You,
hard, it helps.
yeah, you seem to be very balanced. You're like, let's go one step at a time and let's
Yeah,
see how things work, and then we can take that next step.
yeah,
Uh, and you're basically ready for anything. You're not taking anything for granted. That's how I think that is probably the best way to look a startup or a business, because things will become very simple, normal. I would say normal. You
Yeah.
will slowly eliminate the pressure. You'll slowly take out the stress, not immediately,
Yeah.
slowly, but you will know, okay, we're not attached to this, but at the same time we will give our best. I think that is probably the best way to approach doing business, especially when you're growing.
Yeah. And
Because
especially if you want to survive while doing it. Yeah. For sure. I think what we also what helped us a lot is we have like this framework, and I think it was in year 2 that we realized like what is actually working for us, and it came down to like these 3 principles of
mm,
okay, Tally is free, right? That's how we
mm-hmm,
sell the product, that's how it grows by itself, so that's super important. Tally is simple, so we want to
mm-hmm,
keep the product simple, but also our marketing is simple, our team working is simple, everything is simple. And then Tally is us, it's the founders, it's the bootstrapped story, it's us providing personal support. And
mm,
so every time we have hard moments or decision or difficult decisions to make, we kind of go back to those 3 principles. And it
mm,
really helps us a lot. Like, oh, should we introduce this feature? Well, will it get us more free users? Yes or no, right? Is it easy enough, or will it just make the product super complex? Okay, yes or no.
right.
And that's kind of, or like, should we do this interview or this? Like, everything kind of comes down to these 3 things.
Mm,
And if it's simple enough, if we can manage it by ourselves, and if it helps grow and get more free users in, then it's fine. And that makes it a lot easier to make
mm,
decisions. And we have to get, like, we have to think about those principles every week, because
yeah,
something comes up, or you see something on Twitter, or like, oh, we should be doing this or this, and it's like, oh,
right,
no, let's go back to what works for us. And
right.
kind of, I guess, being a bit stubborn in that, yeah, helps
I think
us
I will
managing.
call that, yeah, some people call that stubbornness because they want to be rigid to certain values. I
Yeah,
call it self-awareness. You know
yeah,
what you are, what you want very clearly. You have so much clarity that you won't be focusing on other things. You basically
no,
focus on the things you really need to do. That's it. I think
yeah,
that is really important. I think, pretty much every founder who made it, all they did was focus, right? Like that's like the
yeah.
step 0. Focus on one thing, do it to your best. And I think there is a
Do it over
philosophy
and
as
over
well,
again, basically. Yeah,
over and over again, and a philosophy of not attaching, having that detachment, and anything can help you, like, ease down little things. Let's talk about Tally. I want to talk about, I think the hockey stick is amazing. I want to talk about, you also kind of explain the do things that don't scale ways. Like one of the things is
yeah,
cold outreach. I
yeah,
want to understand about why Farm Builder in the first place. It's such a crowded place. You're competing with giants like Typeform.
yeah,
At that point, it's already venture backed, biggest brand, so many bells and whistles.
yeah,
Why Farm Builder? And that's why you want to enter into such a crowded market when your intention is to support yourself. You want to
yeah,
be independent. So you're going after something big, which is very hard. Again, I think all the 4 years of your life, in the last 4 years, you upped your game. You made it very harder for yourself, for both of you, with kids, with being in the crowded market. So all those things are very tough. So why forms in the first place?
yeah. So, combination of things. When we so basically our first startup failed. So we built something completely else first, and then failed because of COVID, and we had to come up with a new idea. And when we were brainstorming, forms was something that had come up because I have a marketing background, and we had both used form builders, in our past jobs, but also in our first startup. And we had never really found a tool that we like to use. And what I mean by that is, so there's Google Forms, works great, it's free, but you just cannot customize it. And to us, it just doesn't look good. So that was like, okay, not loving this. Then there's the big players, and of course there's Typeform. Typeform looks great, but kind of forces you into this format of one question per page, and that's something also we experienced, can be pretty expensive if you don't have any budget when you just start out. Like, we made a waiting list in the beginning. Like, I'm not gonna pay hundreds of dollars for this form. I'll stick to the Google form. It might not look that great, but anyway,
Right. It does the
free.
job.
It does the job. So those two things combined, we were like, and at the same time, we started using Notion to run our startup. And we just loved it. Not only the interface, but also how they were backed by the community, right? And how they kind of managed to make note-taking at the time like fun and sexy in a way. You kind of just want to use the product. So that, made us think like, can we not do that to forms? How can we make a form builder that is modern, that people actually want to use, that you want to spend time in? And about the crowded market, how we saw it is, it's a very competitive market, but every company needs a form at one point, right? So there's also a huge demand, and the demand is validated. We're not, form builders have been there since the beginning of the internet. We're not reinventing the wheel here, but we were like, okay, if we can claim just a very small percentage of that humongous market, the demand is there, right? People need forms, but we're so small. We don't need the revenue of the big players to be successful for ourselves, and that's kind of how we went into it. And I guess we had to do things a bit differently than the established players, of course, because we don't have their marketing budgets, and that's where the whole free part came in. And so offering most of it for free is what really differentiates us from a Typeform, for example.
Sure.
Because like 4 years ago, we didn't really know about a lot of other form builders that were doing this. That was kind of our biggest USP. And then we also discovered that our interface and our, the user experience was also a big reason of why a specific niche of people were choosing for Tally. So then we thought, okay, there is this, it might be small, like we didn't know it at the time, but there is this group of people that would appreciate, what we're building. And that's how we ended up with building forms. And I think over the years, I've learned that it is actually easier to launch in a very crowded market than to, build the market yourselves. And I think that's one thing that, if I would need to repeat this, I would probably go for the same formula.
That is fascinating. I think it's kind of like an unwritten rule, right? Nobody knows about it, but it's actually pretty much there. I love that. I love the fact that you admitted that, because lot many people cover that up and say, hey, we did XYZ and we were successful. But I appreciate your honesty there. It's like you said, it's, you don't have to sell the problem because the problem has been sold by big players. So all you need to do is like provide a little bit better solution.
And find an angle that works for you. And for us, it was pricing and the interface, and that's just what we go really hard on.
And I love the fact that you also mentioned, because one of my questions is, there is so much influence of Notion on Tally. Be it design, the functionality, because Notion, you just backspace and you just like type. It creates like tables, pages, and all that, like /. You have a similar way of approaching forms.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that influence. Like, what do you think? How did Notion? How much of Notion played a role in Tally's development?
Yeah, I think Notion, I mean, has been hugely important for us, and has been a big inspiration from the start. And I think the text editor interface is of
Hmm.
course, I mean, there was Notion. There was also other tools that like a whole wave of tools that kind of have this,
Right.
but I think Notion is the most well known one. And definitely, this it just made us think like, how can we make it so easy, like
Hmm.
Notion does to build forms. And so of course the editor, like the first version, was inspired by Notion. And I think besides the design, also just the way how they have this group of super passionate users, right,
Yeah.
that have formed millions of communities by now, and have helped them grow. Because actually at the time Notion, um, I think there were only like 40 or 50 people. So we thought like, wow, if they can do this, with such a
Hmm.
small team, must be possible, to build something that people actually want to use, but with a small team. So they influenced us in multiple ways.
Hmm.
I think if Notion would not have existed, Tally would have still be there. Maybe it would have looked a bit different. I don't know.
Hmm.
But yeah, definitely inspired by them. And then what we then saw is that, of course, Notion users also loved using Tally, because of the similarities, and because of also like the natural, like the integration that we have, to send your form data to Notion. And I think what has helped us as well to grow is that Notion users are also very vocal about the tools that
Yeah.
they use, the templates they make. Same like with no codes,
Sure.
specialists, and that's kind of how we launched, right, and how people got to know us, and how the whole word of mouth kind of started because of those ambassadors, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
I have a curious question. Talking about, I think I just remembered. I think Tally is one of those tools that actually rode the wave of COVID, and it took no code to the next level. I think at that time no code was very popular, very very popular. Everybody's kind of
Yeah.
freaking about it. So my curious question is, if you were to do Tally today, where
Hmm.
there is no code movement, but not like 2020, because I was part of that movement. I kind of like rode the wave as well. Uh, Take back to COVID. Like, we have so much time sitting on our desks trying new tools that really helped a lot of products. I built a thing called Shoutout on the same ride.
Yeah.
So if you were to do Tally today, what would you do differently, or how would you kind of approach starting from scratch around this time where it's all about AI? It's all about
Yeah.
like a different way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts.
Good question. I mean, hard to say. What's actually funny is that, so in Belgium, the whole no-code movement it's only just getting started.
Oh,
And
wow.
actually, when we launched Tally, we didn't really know that much about it, and it was
Hmm.
because of our first users happened because in France it was already big,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a neighboring country of where we live. And some of our first users introduced us to the No Code France community, and they
Hmm.
have a very active community, and they kind of helped us also find our first users. And it's only then that we realized, wow, this no code movement. I mean, of course, we kind of knew what it was, but it was just not a thing. It was not a hype here. And it's only after launching that we kind of realized that Tally fitted into that wave. So it was more accidentally. It was not, a super
Hmm.
strategic decision from us at the time. So I think that would not have really impacted it. But, talking about AI, of course, probably because probably AI would be more, or the form builder would have more smart capabilities already built in if we would launch today. While now we are a bit more not hesitant, but a bit more like, okay, let's see what really makes sense, before we
Mm-hmm.
start, being the AI form builder.
stamp
Um,
stamp AI on every product, right? Everybody's
yeah,
like, we
indeed.
see AI,
Yeah.
like let's stamp out on product. So
And we saw it as well in like feature requests, like, hey, where's the AI, right? It's like, yeah, but what would you like to, like, what's the use
yeah.
case, And of course, it's hugely important, and it's disrupting everything. Probably also forms, but it would probably play a more important role in development from the start. While now we are kind of taking it more slowly, looking also at like internal processes that support, how can we automate all of that, and then just seeing what would really make sense to build into the product. And we have quite some ideas about that, but
Mm-hmm.
probably it will be a higher priority, if you launch it in 2024 than launching in 2020. Would we have grown as much? I have no idea. I don't know. I think what we see now is that in Europe, no code is getting a lot more popular. But we're always a couple of years behind in those
Mm-hmm.
those things. So I'm not sure how that would impact the growth. It has definitely helped us a lot, especially on Twitter and the hackers, Reddit, those channels. But yeah, good question. I'm not sure what else I would do differently. I mean, there's been learnings along the way, but I think they were more focused on not really the product, but like, I mean, we've launched features that we thought more people would use, and then
Mm-hmm.
like there's all of that. Um, we probably would have hired sooner. I think we've grown the
Mm.
team sooner. Um, but yeah, those are things that you don't know when you start out.
You gotta take your chances, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask about. I ask this question to pretty much every founder because once they're successful, they're like kind of what you're doing, right? And you don't
Yeah.
think about exactly what you're doing, and you're like again locked in, focused. You just go to the next step, one step at a time, and you often kind of don't think about what would I do if this failed, for example.
Yeah.
So my question is, what would have like Marie, Philip, both of you would have done? Let's say this failed, like your first startup. I think your first startup is Hotspot, or
Yeah.
is that, yeah, right?
Yeah.
So imagine that's like another Tally's, like another venture like that. What you have done? Like, do you have any idea,
Um,
backlog, or like what would have done? I'm
n-
sure you would definitely enter into a crowded market. So I'm curious, what kind of crowded
yeah.
market would you choose?
I think that's something we know now. I don't know at the time, right? If
Right.
we would have
That's
just have
true.
done the same.
Right.
So I think we would have tried again for sure. So kind of
Huh.
what happened is we kind of gave ourselves 1 year
Hmm.
to try and build a startup. And I think what's also important to mention is, so Philip had sold his previous startup, which was a
Okay.
crypto portfolio application. So again, something very different. Had done that before we started Hotspot, which means we had some savings in the bank to be able
Right.
to do this.
Hmm.
And I think that's also always important to talk about, because in the end, a lot of the time, it's just the finances that decide how long you can go on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, it was like, okay, we can now do this comfortably for a year without having an income, and we will still be able to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
But probably we would not have, done it for 2 years or for three
Right.
years. So I think we would have probably tried to come up with new ideas, and try to launch them. But if nothing worked, and after a certain amount of time, we would need to make money again, right?
Right.
And we would probably, I think we would. I think the idea at the time was to freelance, like I had some, work like around 10 years in B2B marketing through that, and helped other companies. And I think we would have done that and probably tried to build something on the side until it works. But I have no idea how long we would have managed to do that, not sure, but I think that would have been the way. That's also how we started with Hotspot. We both had our different jobs and we built it on the side. We had
Right.
like a first bit of traction, and only then we decided to go full in. So I think we would have kind of repeated that again. Yeah.
What didn't work with Hotspot that worked really well with Tally?
It's really not comparable for me. So Hotspot was a marketplace, and it brought together small hotels and travel influencers, and it basically helped small hotels to market and to create content for their business by working with influencers. And for influencers, it helped them to find hotels to collab with and to travel for free and set up partnerships. So I think it was a lot more sales heavy. Like you had to literally call, like if it would have become bigger, we would have had a sales team, right? And we would have account managers calling hotels and trying to get them in. So definitely not like the product-led growth, like what we're having now. So I think that would have been difficulty number one. And just the fact that there's a marketplace and you need enough of both parties to make it work. It was a very different approach.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know if COVID didn't happen, if we would have succeeded. Like it's one big question mark.
You'll never know.
We'll never know. No.
You talk about product-led growth. I want to understand, apart from powered by Tally, apart from making it free, almost free, what are the tactics that you think like gel really well when it comes to product-led growth? Is it somewhere like did you try something and did you fail at something when you tried to put product-led growth into motion?
I think from the beginning we knew that like the barriers to try it out needed to be as low as possible. And so of course the fact that it's free really helps, because you don't have to pay to try it out.
Right.
But from the start, we also you don't need an account to try it out, right? So actually, completely in the beginning, our landing page was the form builder. So
I
you would just
remember
go
that.
to Tally.so and
Yeah,
it was just this, and you could start using it. And I think it was like keeping it as simple and super easy to get started. I think that definitely helped, because people try it out. Okay, they kind of like it. You'll share it, on social media, for example, and more people get to see it. So I think keeping it simple and keeping it free, then again, helps to get more free users in the flywheel. And I think doing that, but also going really hard on customer support, because once people are in, you want to make them happy,
right.
And happy users are the best ads, right? So doing that, I think, has helped us tremendously. And again, it's something that doesn't scale. It was just us answering questions, us talking to users on Slack, almost 24/7. But doing that, turned the first users into the biggest ambassadors, but also helped us shape the product and build the right things, because they kind of told us what to build next. So that made it a lot easier to shape the roadmap, and so on. And I think all these things are important for the product-led growth. So I don't think it's just being free, but it's it's a couple of things combined.
What's next for Tally? What's the end game, Marie? What are you guys thinking? Like 10 years, 20 years? Like, again, I know you're like a one step at a time person. By this conversation, I already know that. So it's unfair to ask about, hey, how are you thinking next 10 years? But I'm more coming from a point of being ambitious. Like
Yeah.
you're scaling. You're not surviving anymore. So you graduated that surviving mode, and you're now entering into different mode at a rapid pace too. It's not like you're slowly growing. So ambitiously, how are you looking, Tally? What's your end game, both of you? You want to share that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 10 years is difficult indeed. But I think if you ask us, like, we want to be a household name in the form building scene, right? And for us, how cool is it that Tally is being compared to Typeform, and we're
Yeah.
only 3 people. But there's so much more room for growth. What we're seeing now is, so first of all, yeah, we want to and we need to do a bigger thing. So that's like step one for us. We have quite ambitious product plans as well, and to cannot like reveal too much yet, but like want to make the forms more dynamic in several ways. And then what we're starting to see is that there's a lot of enterprise companies that want to use Tally, but we're not necessarily ready for that. We
Right.
don't have the compliance, we don't have the support, like all of that. So for us, it will be looking into, how can we go from startups and creators and solopreneurs to like how can we move up market? And I think there's yet a lot to uncover there. And the ultimate end game, hard to say. Hard to say where this will end, but I think the most important thing for us is that we can see ourselves doing this for a lot longer. We're pretty
You have more
excited
runway
about
now.
that.
More
Yeah,
than 12 months
yeah,
runway.
indeed. Yeah, we have more than 12 months. We can also start investing back in the product, and we've always been
Yeah.
really careful with that. And this is the first year where we will also. So we have never spent on paid acquisition. And that's something that we will start doing this year. So there's a lot of experimentation now, but because we have a bit more room for that. And that's pretty exciting as well to see if we can not just lean on the product-led growth, but if we, can add some more fuel in
Some more sauce.
Yeah.
Love that, Marie. I still don't know how you do what you're doing. Being a mom, managing Tally, it's so much harder than than one can imagine. So I really, really appreciate you for taking time to talk to me. I've enjoyed thoroughly, and I'm rooting for you. And we need more founders like you who are calm, clear. They know what they're doing, no distractions, very focused, and kind of like have that philosophy of, okay, if nothing works, we'll try again. So I think what I'm sensing is success can make you egoistic. Like you kind of tend to know that, hey, I've achieved everything. But I see completely opposite of that. You seem to be more like, we are not there yet, we are still learning, we're still kind of like going in the path of becoming better. So that is something that I think is worth the biggest takeaway out of this podcast for folks who are listening. So appreciate you for joining. Any last closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I mean, thank you so much for the kind words and for inviting me and for using Tally since the start. And I think what you said like wraps it up nicely. It's I think once you feel too comfortable, things can go wrong as well. So we're uncomfortably excited, and that's what keeps us going.
Awesome. That is a great title. Maybe that should be the title. How to be uncomfortably excited about building a startup.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you.
Awesome. That's it, guys. Stay tuned for more episodes on the Undefeated Underdogs podcast. We have amazing founders like Marie joining the show and dropping their wisdom, knowledge, and lessons and everything else. So stay tuned. Thanks for hearing and giving us your time. Cheers.
Bye.